Okay, good evening. I have 6:32. I'm going to call the order meeting number 1879 of the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. We are here live in the East Windsor High School auditorium as well as on the Zoom platform. We have a quorum. We have 4 regular members as well as a new member, Sandra Downey. I'd like to welcome you to the commission as an alternate member. We do have 1 regular member who's absent, so I would ask you to participate in tonight's discussion and any voting that may occur. Thank you. We have no added agenda items. So there was a legal notice. The East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 27th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Details regarding how to attend will be published on the commission's agenda and will be made available on the town website. PZ 2024-12, the applicant owner is the town of East Windsor, is requesting a text amendment to section 817 Planned Commercial Development District. A full copy of the application is available on the Planning and Zoning Commission's webpage on the town's website. All interested persons may attend this meeting and provide verbal or written comments regarding this application. This was posted in the Journal Inquirer on August 1st, 2024, and again on August 15th, 2024. We are at the public participation portion of our meeting. This is if anyone has anything they'd like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda. Yes, sir.
Here, this Mike.
Sure.
Bob Light, 80 Rye Street, East Windsor. Half of my concerns that I wanted to speak about have already been taken care of. If there's anything that's been bothering me about the whole planning and development department, it's been the lack of volunteer people to help carry the load. And we already have 1 person added to this board tonight. I'm very happy to see that. I was going to appeal to the audience, to the people on Zoom, if they're here, to stand up and participate in this very important procedure, not only in planning and development, on the Planning and Zoning Commission, but on the Economic Development Commission. It's great to see this. There was twice as many people here, I think, at the last hearing, and I was glad to see that. But don't wait until it's something that's in your backyard. Come forward, because this is one of the few commissions or boards that doesn't require a college education. It doesn't require a particular area of expertise. You just gotta want to know and care about what's good for your town and good to help the development of the town in such a way that your taxes are balanced every year without a continual cost. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? Okay. Moving on to our approval of minutes. We have the minutes from our last meeting of August 13th. Does anyone have any edits or corrections to the minutes?
I do, Mike, yes. Line 59. Line 59. I feel it should be section 403 and 507.4. Instead of, yeah, exactly, it's just a typo. And then again on line 61. Same thing, and then again on line 63. That's all I got.
Anyone else have anything?
1 edit,
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
just 1 edit on line 118. It reads Scott was did not approach. We'll just go with Scott did not approach. Strike the word was.
Yeah, strike was, okay. Anything else? Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve meeting minutes number 1878 dated August 13th, 2024 as amended.
There's a motion on the table for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay. We have no new receipt of applications, no performance bonds or actions. So we're going to go right into our continued public hearing. It is PZ 2024-10, Town of East Windsor is requesting a text amendment to zoning regulations sections 201.1 definitions, 305.3 farm regulations, 403 and 507.4 permitted accessory uses and warehouse point, 404 permitted accessory uses, 405 temporary permits and seasonal events, 503.3 temporary seasonal outdoor dining, and 601.5 automotive uses. Danielle, you will take us through the changes of the today. Okay, thank you. My thought in there? Oh,
Around.
hold on.
Mike back.
Yes.
Oh, nope, nope, that didn't do it.
Underneath.
It's gotta go one more time.
Alright.
There we go.
Hello, everybody. How are you tonight? So we listened to your comments at the last meeting. We actually responded, we posted it online to, I think we got everybody's comments. We watched the video a couple of times, took notes and responded to everyone, whether it was relevant to the amendments you were proposing or not. We tried to give everybody an answer. And we came up with 5 changes from the last, proposed amendments that were presented. So for anyone who grabbed the packet who wants to follow along, they are highlighted in gray. It was the only color that worked, other than yellow, which we already used. So the first one we did was the addition of a definition for motor vehicles. I'm surprised that wasn't in there before, but we went checked across the board for planning definitions. Used the one from the American Planners Association that is cited on those definitions. Number 2, we returned what we originally had. Is
Danielle, for those who may not have a copy, can you just read the definition?
So, motor vehicle definition that was added. Motor vehicle, any self-propelled vehicle designed primarily for transportation of persons or goods along public streets or alleys or of other public ways. That's from 2004, Planners Dictionary, Davidson, Michael, and Faye Donick, editors, PAS report number 5XX-5XX, American Planners Association. The second change that we made, something we originally had, but we returned to the definition of a temporary event, again, across the board. I don't have this reference, but from the American Planners Association ended up being a temporary event is 1 to 14 days long. That was what we added, and then it's the same. It may include or not limited to any other festivals, concerts, circuits, carnival, rally, service, etc., etc. So we had put that in, we took it out, and now we put it back. Now, just to clarify, that does not negate what we put in the regulations about if something is to be 3 days or longer. It will go before the PCC 100%, and that's something that we put in the regulations. So to clarify the difference in that, this is just the definition of a temporary event. Number 3, the chicken amendment. I don't really have a lot to say about it. So we returned that. Right now, we changed it so that the chicken amendments are only applying to those who have a parcel of 1 acre or less. Anybody who has an acre or more, you're gonna just continue on with the regulations that are already passed, already on the book, and have been being used for the past 13 years. So that's how we did that. I also want to clarify, a misinformed post or perhaps it was misinterpreted post about statute 22A-40 from the wetlands. That states that as of right, chickens can graze and you can farm in the wetlands. That's 100%. We never said otherwise. This amendment, which wasn't even changed, says any kind of manure storage only must be 150 feet from a wetland. That's in the original regulations. That was transferred over to the new regulations. That was not an amendment. And I checked in with Deep. I contacted Deep, Kristen McNeil, if anyone wants to verify with her as well. Filling is not an as of right use within a wetland. So if you have a manure storage, we're assuming that's gonna be in some form of structure, whether it's solid cement, whether it's a box, whether it's a chicken coop. Or if it's a pile of the manure as you collect it. Any way you look at it, it is considered filling and it is not as of right. That is why that pertains only to manure storage, not grazing. Your chickens can run all around the wetlands however they may want. So I wanted to just make sure that was clarified. The next section was under 404, which people had concerns about, which was registered vehicles. So that is for registered vehicles, they must be, which already states in the regulations again, that it must be registered, it must store in an approved structure, or we added in the rear of property and screened from view. Before that only pertained to commercial, construction, I believe, commercial vehicles. So we added that part for registered vehicles, non-registered vehicles, I'm sorry. The other one was people were concerned with the housing or the use of commercial vehicles on your property. So what we added was not more than one commercial vehicle for a licensed resident of the property. So if you're on license, you live at the property, you have a commercial vehicle, if there's, I know you that live there, that's kind of commercial vehicles. That's how it's written. But you cannot have a gross weight of more than 25,999 pounds. So that's class 1 through 6 vehicles that can be parked in the driveway. And that were all of the changes that we made. I will leave it up to Mike now to step in with.
And I'll start, is there any commission member that has any questions or comments on these changes or need any further clarifications?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the public then. We have 6 people that requested to speak on this. The first one is Paul Anderson. Would you like to use the podium? I can return the microphone there.
Yeah, we can try that.
It was their original, so it should just, we ran so many other wires here.
You wanna hold it or you wanna put it in?
You can project now.
Yeah,
Recording is there.
Okay, I can speak aloud.
Just the other thing.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first item I have is the definition of a recreational vehicle. Because when it states these do not include vehicles used primarily for transportation on roads or highways. An RV can very easily be used primarily for transportation. You're going cross country, you're gonna be on the road more than you're gonna be camping in it or staying in it. So I have a problem with the fact that it specifically, specifies motorhome. I think that's really difficult to swallow. So there's that one. Not to wait for a while. Oh, let's see. No, I'm not gonna talk about it. Okay. Okay, vehicles
in the rear of the property screened from view. Someone brought this up before, back to backyards, screening from view. Okay, no specifications on what kind of screening, when does it become a problem? And if you happen to live on a sloped property, be it the road can view your backyard, or your neighbor can view your backyard, are we gonna now have to screen over the top of things so they can't see it? Because that's view. Food for thought. Okay, looking in that spot, I don't know if it's the number one, I don't know where it fits. Hard to read in this lighting, whatever. Storing, I believe it's, recreational vehicles, more than, or within 30 feet of the property line. Okay, now we have,
That's front line.
yeah, front line, fair enough. Does it say, yeah, front property line? Okay, now, the state has a right of way, town has a right of way, blah, 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 but you still own your property. So are we measuring from the street like your deed shows? I think that's an important piece of information. One more item, I believe. Thank you. I'll tell you the help we get. Okay. Sale of motor vehicles limited to 2 times a year. This has been brought up before. And if it's in the current section 404, whatever, take it out. Because it's not appropriate. You're allowing as many people who live there to have a registered vehicle. Every one of them could want to sell their vehicle, but you're saying you can only have 2 sales per year. To me, that is a difficult definition. And we don't want people being cited for things and going through whatever is involved. That just is a waste of time. Nobody needs to do all of this. So I'm just suggesting that those things be re-looked at and readdressed. Thank you very much. Oh, you gotta run back.
No, I think I can speak loud enough that we won't have to run the microphone back and down. Next person is Rand Stanley.
Thank you.
Good evening, Rand Stanley, 87 High Street. I've only had a couple of moments to take a look at this, but one of my questions to the board and to staff would be, number 3, in regards to off-street parking or garaging of residence vehicles subject to the following restrictions. Apparently that's on page 8. Number 3 says, in any case, no tractor trailer trucks, semi-trucks, buses, trailers, excluding recreational vehicles, maybe parked longer than a 12-hour period. What is the definition of trailer that you are using? Is it a 12 by 15 foot trailer that somebody uses to haul trash? Is it a 5 by 8? Is it a tractor trailer? Is it a semi-trailer? Is it a flatbed? What is it? Is it clear in the definitions what that trailer is? Is it an enclosed trailer that a local band may use to transport equipment back and forth with? That's just a question for the board and the staff. The other is, I'm a little confused as to what non-commercial construction equipment may be. Construction equipment typically, by definition, is a commercial use.
It's if you own a piece of equipment that you use for private use for yourself, that you don't hire it out.
All right.
So you can have a backhoe, you can have farm, that's what it is. So you're not using it for commercial use, you're using it for personal use.
All right, you mean like a farm tract?
Exactly,
Okay,
personal use.
good. And I would think then that the regulation would specifically state personal use as opposed to just non-commercial, because that kind of left me in the weeds. As we go forward, and these are the only two things right now that I do want to discuss. I am concerned with, a definition of a temporary event being 14 days. That's an awful long time. Even if it's approved by a commission or administratively, that's an awful long time for somebody that lives in a residential section to, have that type of disruption to their private residential property. I know it would certainly, concern me if it did. I just think that taking a generic definition and applying it may not be the best use for the town of East Windsor. I think that I would urge the board to please take a look and remember that any amendment to our zoning regulations is required by law to be in the public interest. And I would just urge the board to take a close look at any of the text amendments. Look for it and ask yourselves, is this in the public interest? The public being not just the people that are here tonight, the public being each and every one of us, and those of you that live in this community, and ask yourselves, do I want this next to me? That's it. Thank you. I didn't want to shut them off.
Okay, next is Ted Szymanski.
Some of the questions I had have already been answered, in glancing through what we have up to this point. The one I had a concern, a question on was farm stands, where it says you need a permit for a farm stand if you're gonna sell anything. I don't know what the real need of that is. For a lot of people who might have a small garden, they may sell a few flowers, they would need to get a permit. To me, that seems like something that really doesn't need to be done. If they're selling some type of product, some type of goods that may be regulated by the state, well, the state takes care of that. But for the small person in a small garden, like the 500 thing, they're selling lavender. Something lavender, does that mean they have to come and get a permit to sell 3 bunches of lavender from the garden? That's the only question I have.
Next is Stan Pileski.
Stan Plesky, Dry Street. One of the ones that okay, so we got the one, we're not more than one personal vehicle per licensed resident, and not over 25,999. On my way here, okay, I pass a residence that the, gentleman does high voltage. The company he previously worked for during the governor telling us to be prepared and setting up Eversource and Eversource's contractors, which is one of them, would drive that bucket truck home. That bucket truck could either be 26,000 or under that 25,000. And depending upon what the political climate is, if that neighbor had a permanent snicker for whatever, that poor guy could be, I'd really like to see something, it sounds like I'm picking, you know what, out of pepper, but, you know, stuff like that, when it comes into possible storms and staging of equipment or vehicles might be something you wanna look at. I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna look at within 30 feet of a property line of an RV. There is some streets in the town of East Windsor, and it may be a major one, that there is no established street lines on. And boundary markers are set significantly far back from the actual street itself. You wouldn't know it unless you lived there or somebody else is there. That RV happens to be within that 30 feet, you might get hit. So I would hope that that would be brought to be able to be brought to the ZBA. Next also too, is that, I'll go back to that 2599, Robert Fire Department's car show. You will find that there's a few people that have driven trucks, they may not be an air tractor trailer cab, that may not be commercially registered, might be run by a transport company. Are they there longer than a 12-hour period before they can bring them to the car show? Sure they are. Just a food for thought. I'm gonna hit my last one, which is the farm stands. And on my way here, I passed two places selling duck eggs. One of them is chicken eggs, the other one sells honey. Similar to what Mr. Szymanski said, we're kind of, it's a lot of people who put out excess produce from their gardens. Will it be free, the same thing? Are we gonna start getting down into the lemonade stands? I hope not. Thank you very much.
Verma Shaw.
Shaw East Road, I was concerned about, two things, the farm stand, regulation, and exactly the definition of the farm stand. If you get produce away free, I mean, everybody had a bumper crop this year, because it's such a hot summer, does that include farm stand if you're not charging for it? And also, as other people have mentioned, I just want to reiterate, because the more people speak about it, there's all different kinds of farm stands in town, because it is a regular farm town. People have lavender, somebody just mentioned, very small stand, very nicely done. Some people sell flowers out of the front yard, some people have very small vegetable stands. I mean, maybe a couple little red wagons full. There's all different, sizes of farm stands, so I think maybe it might be easier to find that a little bit better too, I'm sorry to say. And then also, I don't know if this is a question you're allowed to answer now though. I've never heard of anybody breaking these violations other than houses that have been abandoned, so I don't know, like, if you have a farm stand and you're selling, your excess squash that your neighbor don't let you leave on their porch, what do you get fined if you have the farm stand in front of your house? Is it like $25 a day or $25 a week? Or I honestly didn't do my homework on looking up the fines for these things. If you park your tractor trailer there one night, and one of your neighbors happens to complain, what do you get fined? What is it gonna be worth to somebody to not do this or to do it? Because of what the fine is. I'm curious about that. If we could somehow speak about that during this meeting, I'd appreciate it. And that's it. Thank you.
Albert Brandt.
Grant Melrose Road. I just want to speak about the chicken regulations and the intent of the Agricultural Commission in revising the regulations was intended to allow people with less than an acre lot to have chickens. presently they're not allowed to. And so basically the crux of the changes are they're changing the feet from the street line from 60 feet to 25 feet. And changing the setback from the property line from 100 feet to 10 feet. And changing the distance from an abutting dwelling from 150 feet to 25 feet. So that's basically allowing people with more than half an acre of pasturable land, which means it doesn't include your driveway and your house, to be able to have chickens. And up to 6 chickens for that size lot, so that's basically what the issue, the change is, so I was kind of puzzled to know what the pushback on that was. It seems to benefit everybody, and unless you don't like chickens, then there's no downside. My comment.
Okay, that was everybody that signed up in the audience. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward.
This is a town rights road resident of East Hampton. I have two concerns. One is, if I heard you correctly, in regards to chickens, if you have an acre of land, they don't have to be secured. Is that correct?
As the regulations read now, they can breed free range. So if you have more than an acre, they go by what we already have under the.
Because I have a concern. There's I believe property is more than an acre, that's on 140, and more than once in the past month, going down 140, I've had to stop, spend on my brakes because there's chickens out in the road. That's a hazard and that's a danger. If that's acceptable, is the liability on the town, or is the liability on the residents if I get into an accident, if I get one of those chickens? That's my concern. So I know I can't answer it, but that's a concern that I have, and I also know somebody else that has that concern. That it happens frequently. The other thing in the regulations, and I apologize, I haven't looked at the updates. But there was one section, previous to the last meeting where it said that you couldn't have the chicken in your home. I don't know what gives the town the right to tell somebody what they're allowed to have in their home or not. I know over the years, being married to someone that's of a different nationality, his grandmother had a goose in her house. It was her pet. It was very well maintained, and there was never an issue with it. And I know somebody keeps a chicken in their home today that live in town. I think that's overstepping what's required of the law to tell somebody what they can have in their home and not. I have an issue with that, but I would like to see the music at that. As far as, campers are concerned, as everybody knows, during election time, there's a complaint filed that I had camper in my yard that I had to move to my backyard. I believe the changes that have been made after other people spoke last meeting has made it so that the 30-foot on the road to the property, I should be all right moving forward. But it's a travel trailer that gets hooked up onto a truck. Somebody brought the question whether or not that's going to be considered a vehicle if they have on the road or not. So that brings another question in mind. So that they can look like that. Those of us that have those type of vehicles, we'd like to have clarification on that. Thank you.
I forgot, I wanted to, make a note about the chickens. I, live in the neighborhood and 3 people have chickens in their yards. And, I don't know much about chickens. I'm extremely ignorant about chickens. They're cute little things I said them, but that's about all I know. I don't know how you keep them. I don't know what is proper for them. I don't know anything else. But I see 6 chickens in a 3x6 pen with a coop above it. And I think that's animal cruelty in my personal opinion. Like I said, I'm very ignorant about chickens. I don't know much about them. I've never had them, never kept them. But I think keeping 6 chickens in a 3x6 coop is cool. I'd like to see, a mandate for coop size, as long as they're gonna be in a coop, maybe like 4 feet per chicken. I don't honestly know what's reasonable, because I'm not a chicken person. Like I said, no experience whatsoever, I'm not a fan. But I think there should be a size, if as long as they're gonna be, you know, and under, if they have to be in the coop, that there be, a certain amount of space mandatory per chicken. I would really like to see that. And as far as the free range, if you have over an acre, I believe I'll be talking about the same, area that Marie's talking about. When I delivered mail, I used to have to go fill up on, at the station over by 91. And I had to go beyond my route to go fill up. And when I went by Golden Gavel Plaza by this certain household on 140, I saw 3 chickens dead on the road, and I saw their goat get hit crossing the road. I'm sure they have more than 1 acre, and I complained 3 times seeing the dead chickens. I was very offended by that. But we had put up a minimal fencing. I think it was like plastic, almost looked like wire fencing. But the chickens by the road, I see them by the road constantly now, and I can't drive, so I'm worried that my fiance is driving very well. And I'm constantly yelling at him, slow down by that house, you know, don't take your chicken to that house, so don't, you know, if you see the goat in the front yard, don't trust him. Slow down, because you can't trust him, you know, because we've seen him in the road, on the other side of the road, at the edge of the road, and I would feel terrible if I hit anything, a squirrel or a chicken, a chipmunk, a goat. I mean, I wouldn't even care about the damage to the car. I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that, you know, that we hit an animal like that, regardless if it was the owner's irresponsibility, but if they're allowed to do that, they're allowed to free range, is that irresponsibility? I don't know, but I think free ranging when you're on a route, like 140, I wouldn't know how nitpicky you have to be to allow free range everywhere or in certain areas, but when I see 3 dead chickens and, you know, like 2 summers on the side of the road, and that's only what I saw, never mind what had been hit previously and picked up, or, you know, other people had taken care of it. So that's and also, but again, I would like to see minimum 4 feet in the town or in a per chicken, because I think 6 chickens in a 3x6 coop is cool. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
My name is Brenda Crockett and I live at 10 Rockville Road in Brockville. And I'm kind of caught a little bit unprepared because I just found out about this meeting and I was out of state for the last. So is this a forum where you respond, like if I were to say, what is driving these changes? Is it resident complaint? Is it safety issues? Is it like, I'm just wondering where all this is coming from, because I can't unfortunately read this because I left my glasses and I didn't want to miss anything to go back and get them. So I'm just curious where this is all coming from. What drives these changes? Can you respond, or do I?
We're gonna answer a lot of the questions after.
That's my question. That was my question, because it seems like they run a huge gamut from something that could be a true safety concern to something as, to me, and forgive me, as insignificant as what you consider a pet in your house. So, if you could, I'd really like to address like, where is all this coming from? Cause it seems like for somebody who lives in this town, because I love this town for the quaint, charismatic, just nostalgic kind of place that it is. It seems like that's being invaded. And I respect what you do and your time, but that's my feeling. So if you could put me at peace about this in your response, I'd love that. Because right now it's not being so good. Because otherwise we might as well just go to another town that's already like, we're trying to make this one. We like it the way it is.
Yes, sir.
No, Rose Road. Can everybody hear me? Can anybody hear me?
You can use the mic right there, sir.
Just better?
Yes.
Okay. Let me try to capture a few things that I think have not yet been captured in all of the hearings so far. 4 words come to mind, all of which end in I-V-E. Let's think about it. The current set of zoning regulations is necessarily somewhat restrictive. They have to be, there are a set of rules. As such, they're also subjective. It requires somebody to think about the rule, to think about the situation, and to make a decision. So far, so good. We've lived with that for many, many years. What I'm now hearing, I think from some outside consultants that are blowing in someone's ear, that we need to have a prescriptive set of zoning regulations. No unregistered cars, no chickens, no pigs, no kids, no nothing. Being facetious a little bit here. Whoever said this town needs that kind of rules? I look around and I see people that work for a living. I see people with suntans on the back of their neck. I see people that do things. I see people that build things. When they come to town meetings like this to express their opinions, good. But what I don't see is a need for a robotic approach to this. We get enough robocalls at night anyway from town hall. Vote for this, vote for that. We don't need a robot coming around town every week looking for this, that, and the other. We have a set of rules. Maybe we should try following them more intelligently than we have been. Not an easy situation, but not an impossible situation either. Food for thought. Why don't we try something, one more IBE word? Why don't we try something creative? I hear a lot of talk about unregistered cars. Okay, the town is not getting any revenue from these. And maybe that's why a lot of cars are not registered. Try this on for size. Why don't we forgive for a year the taxes on newly registered cars that have been previously unregistered? The revenue neutral would be easy enough to do. The state requires us to assess these vehicles in such a way. State doesn't require us to necessarily collect the taxes. Why don't we try a little bit of creativity for once, instead of listening to outside consultants that we don't need? Finally, one more thought. Planning and zoning. All of the proposed rules that we're thinking about do not address the biggest eyesore in town. Up the road here, about a mile, what used to be the movie theaters
is now the biggest eyesore in town. I don't know how the town follows let this happen without building in some protection in case the Indians and in case the state, but just a twist in the wind, but they did. A lot of what we're trying to do here is nibbling away at the smaller stuff. Maybe we should deal with the bigger stuff somehow. I don't have any answers, maybe nobody does right now. But why don't we think outside the box? I'd like everyone to consider that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on this application? And hearing none. Okay, well, let's see if we can maybe give some responses to some of the questions that came up.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I tell you, I'll get the microphone back. All right, so the first comment or question I wrote down was about definition of an RV. There could be possible situations where people are primarily using it, but I think if you average out over the 52-week period, if they are primarily using it for transportation, they're not in town. I don't think anybody's gonna drive around constantly around town in an RV. That's,
And we also have to remember that these regulations are supposed to be town-wide, town encompassing, all encompassing, so there are always gonna be in every single situation. You know, what about this, or what if this, or these extreme, my mom used to call me the what if kid, because, well, what about this? And I think about the most extreme thing that could happen. That might happen, and we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis, but in generally speaking, these are to try to include everyone.
and that's strictly just in the definition part. There were no added restrictions if you do use it for conveyance. It's just trying to define what an RV is. There was also a question about screening. A tarp is screening. So a tarp over something, doesn't matter if you have somebody from the front, from the rear, from the side, it's screened. So screening can be addressed in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be a 40-foot high fence so nobody from the top of the hill can see you. The question about where is the 35-foot gonna be measured from? Are we just gonna go from the curb line? Is that what we're looking at? We're not pulling up property maps or?
I mean.
The intent is to not block a line of sight for passing vehicles.
And the intent is that a right of way, a roadway, those can always be changing. Your property line does not change. Totally understand that it's difficult sometimes to find a plot plan, to find a survey that shows you where your property line is, or to find a marker within your yard to measure out so you know where your property line is. But the reason property line is used is because your property line, it remains stagnant. I mean, unless you subdivide and add on, I guess. So that was the easiest, we need a starting point, so you need a point of reference to measure from. And it's not always the edge of the street, it's not always the edge of the road, it's not always where the utility poles are, it's. We just needed something that was stagnant.
There was also a question about multiple sales of motor vehicles.
Yeah, and that's something we can look at for the next week for sure. That's not something we changed here. It's not something we addressed. This is something that's already in the regulations. So I did take a note or keep a notes and a year from now, do another sweep of all the regulations with ideas that people have presented that are not within these amendments. Absolutely. And that's something we can look at. But right now, that's not up for change.
That's not one of the items we're
That's-
requesting to change, correct? I think we addressed the definition of I think we're splitting words, if you're calling something non-commercial versus personal use, on the construction equipment. I mean, it's,
I did make notation of that though, for clarification. That could certainly be added for more clarification. Same with that word, the word for trailers, which is already in the regulations, but maybe that needs to be removed because again, that's maybe not so clear, but I noted these for our next time we do amendments.
then the temporary events, in the definition of up to 14 days. That's taken that from the general definition.
Yeah, we kept being asked for a definition, that's the definition of a temporary event. I mean, the whole point is if it's more than 3 days, the planning and zoning commission is gonna say yes or no, based on public comment. So if everyone is in disagreement, they don't want a 14-day carnival, which by the way, I've never, ever been approached about. The planning and zoning commission can say, no, absolutely not, we won't allow it to be more than 4 days, we won't allow it to be more than a week, whatever. Whatever it is, based on public comment, they can make that decision at that time.
So how come it,
Literally to get a number
Sorry.
in the definition.
so why do we have to have 14 days in the definition? Why can't we put 4 or 3?
We just use a standard
They took it out of the
temporary
dictionary
definition
of
that's
planners.
across the board. It's not one that we chose over others. It's, if you look up temporary events and look at all the different definitions, they say 1 to 14 days. That's, I guess, the universal definition of temporary. I mean, we could certainly change it to it, but it was just a
But-
matter of putting it.
But anything over 4 days, 3 days triggers,
Automatic.
Automatic for
anything-
us.
Anything that's why I think when we went into the actual, guidelines,
just 4 days, yeah.
it's item number 3. So automatically would have to go to a planning and zoning review if it's, at the discretion of the zoning enforcement officer for any event that includes, amplified music or amplified sound, it says, and for any that is, greater than 3 days. That discretion of the zoning enforcement officer basically can include anything. If you're trying to have any kind of event in a residential neighborhood, that could trigger an automatic, we need to have a review of it, because you're not in an area that would be considered non-disruptive. So I think we put enough safeguards into the actual, lines of the codes here, that the definition part really is just a definition, and we have enough checks and balances to prevent somebody trying to think that they're gonna throw a carnival next door to a residential neighborhood. The discussion about farm stands, that's an existing regulation right now that we're not looking to amend at all.
Yeah, and honestly, I've never had a single person come in for a permit for a farm stand. And I've never had a person complain about one, and I've never driven by one and said, oh, I didn't see them selling duck eggs last week, you know. They better get a permit. It's kind of it's there. I mean, I've marked it down. Maybe that's something we need to look at eliminating or changing or whatever for the next round of amendments, but right now that's something that's already, it just happened to be in the same section that you saw where the changes were, so maybe people hadn't noticed that before in our regulations, but they've always been there.
How long was it in the regulations for?
Since 2011, November. No, I'm sorry, August 1st, 2011 was when they were amended.
There was a concern about commercial vehicle staging for state of emergencies or, storm events. The regulation is pertaining to parking. A one-time event, I don't think would constitute as parking. It's if you're, every day it's there.
Excuse me. When you're on call for a utility company, you might have that truck parked there every single day. So for Eversource, for instance, you can have your truck parked there.
They have now gone to staging areas up in Windsor Locks for all of their line trucks. There's lots full of utility trucks up in Windsor Locks. I,
There's no situation.
I haven't seen, have you seen anybody that has a utility truck in town?
I'd like to speak on this if I can. I mean, I'm a lineman out of 42. I do exactly what they say.
Yeah.
And I've had, phone calls.
Please identify yourself, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna speak on the next topic, but sorry. My name is Pedro Vega. I am a power lineman. I know a couple gentlemen on the board, I know Rand. I've had phone calls made on me about the bucket truck in my backyard from a neighbor who was on a town committee. I don't have to say any names, so I sympathize with these folks. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks. When people want their power, they don't care. They want the power. You're the best guy in the neighborhood. But at another time, if somebody's not happy or just not content with their neighbor, whatever, for whatever reason, they're calling. I've had that happen to me. I mean, I got a witness very close to me, called me and said, very nice gentleman who helped me. And I'm a lineman, I've been doing it for 20 some odd years.
And they require you to take the truck home with you?
It's not a requirement. Well, for me, I'm a private contractor. I work for Eversource as a subcontractor. Now, their guys, they have liberty, they can't. Yes, me, I bring it home sometimes, but it all depends on circumstances. If we're being put on call by the utility, they want you there at a moment's notice. If we have a car versus pole, you have to respond. So it's very tricky. I do agree. I understand you guys have a job to do, and like the gentleman said, the set of rules, they need to remain firm so that we follow them. But also, we need to have some leniency for something like that. I believe those are first responders, and they need to have some flexibility, especially if he's a trouble man working for Eversource or any other type of power line. He could be working 32 hours straight. I know it sounds odd, but it happens. You know, if the guy can't, or the guy or the gal can't take their truck home, that's kind of unfair, I would say. That's all I gotta say, just to that point. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I agree, and I'm glad you allowed.
So as it stands right now, the regulation says none, no exceptions, no none.
And here's something, okay, I would like to think, and I'm not gonna speak for all former ZEOs or future ZEOs, but when there's a complaint, an investigation is made, and the person, I am a person that says everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, so I wanna hear the other side of the story before anything happens. So if you had a call, which I've never had a call about one of these bucket trucks, if one of your neighbors called me and said, hey, blah, 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 I'm first going to contact you and say, what's going on? Or you're gonna get the letter and then you're gonna call me. There's a whole protocol. And you're gonna explain this has been going on, or if there's a storm, or I have common sense and know that we've had, you know, Route 5, I live on Route 5, it's been closed. I don't even know how many times for down trees for power line. Obviously, I think I'm a pretty reasonable person. I'm gonna listen to your side of the story. I work with people, I give them extensions or, okay, well, what's the deal? Well, probably the next month or so, we're working on this. All right, awesome, I got you. You report back to the person if they gave a name, who made the complaint. So again, it's a kind of situation where we're trying to do a blanket regulation here, but obviously we're gonna pay attention to things on case by case basis. But I know nothing is black or white. It helps to have black and white as a guideline, but it's not necessarily something that works for every single case. I don't know if that answers a lot of questions, but hopefully.
Makes sense, as long as there's some understanding, like you just explained.
Yes, that's fine, you're the one.
I think that's perfect. I think that in the past, it has been a problem. I understand that those people are no longer here, but I just heard what she said and I wanted to, you know.
So I hope that answers the question also somebody had on what the fine is. I mean, we have multiple steps before there comes to a fine. So there's conversations, there's letters, you try to come to an agreement, try to come until somebody just flat outright refuses to comply before you go down that road. But there's multiple, you're not gonna get a fine for a vegetable stand.
I have another question. If that's the case, is that also stipulated somewhere in the regulations that, because months back, or maybe even a year or so, when there was a whole blight meeting, and there was gonna be a fine per day.
This has nothing to do with blight at all.
But I'm saying, if it's identified up front, the people know what the protocol is. You got one warning, this is what happens. 2 warnings, this is what happens. 3 warnings, you're out. Or whatever the case may be, so that people know what to expect. It's just my 2 cents. I mean,
There is absolutely a protocol, it's zoning enforcement, well, I know section 900 of the regulations, I'm not sure which one talks about zoning enforcement, there's also a separate, zoning enforcement. I don't know if it's an ordinance, if you call me at any time during office hours, I will email it to you, I can tell you where it is, anything. But there is an absolute protocol and there is warning, there is first day regulation reminder, hey, just in case you didn't know, this is what such and such said, please call me, blah, blah, blah. Then you get a certain amount of time, and there's a notice of violation, and there's a couple ways it can go, it can be a cease and desist, it can go to municipal citation, but there's always warning and there's always a time period with a very clear deadline. All of this is kept on record at any point that someone wants to see it. And it takes a while to get to that point where it's $150 per day. So it's not, you know, it's not just suddenly you've got a farm stand, you got one phone call and the next day you're receiving a $150 per day fine. It's not how it works.
Okay, I mean, there were some comments about, you know, that the regulations need to be less restrictive. Again, currently, if you have less than acre land, it says no chickens. So what we're trying to do is allow people with smaller pieces of property to have this. So the majority of everything that's in here is to make things less restrictive, to allow people to do things, because when it comes to unregistered vehicles, right now it says none, no exception. I mean, it could be interpreted even if it's in your garage, because it doesn't define it. So leaving it as is, it means you can't have any. So we're trying to make this so it gives people an opportunity to have the chickens, to have their project vehicles that they're working on, and not be, you know, in violation. Do you have anything else? Those are the highlights of what I wrote down that people were asking questions on. Did somebody's question not get answered?
I don't have any more.
Can I just ask, is it clearly defined somewhere, which ones are more restrictive? So you mentioned 5 tonight, I believe that we were going over, and I don't know if that's the follow-up from the last meeting we had, that I was saying for.
Do you have a copy of this?
I do.
Everything that's in red is a change,
Okay, so everything I've read
is a change
is a change.
from the existing. So anything that's written in black is current regulation.
Okay, so it could be more restrictive, could be less restrictive, but all you're saying.
I don't know of anything we made more restrictive. I think all the changes, we either defined something to make it understandable, so it's not as vague, or made it less restrictive.
Okay, so back to my original question at the podium, when I asked what drove these, was it a matter of the board reviewing the current planning and zoning and trying to determine what we needed clarification or?
Complaints.
Yeah, I think the process is in the town, they keep track of if somebody comes and has a request that they can't do something currently, they'll make a note of it and say, okay, the next time we go through a regulation sweep, we'll see if we can address that, because it currently says, no, you can't. And that's how a lot of this stuff comes about, where people come and ask for something that right now it says, no, you can't.
Ask a question, when's the POCD?
Tim, you want to just identify yourself?
My name's Tim Warren, 145 Chambers Road. Is this having anything to do with the plan of conservation and development? Because our town, every 10 years, we go through all the regulations, and we say, okay, this doesn't really make sense anymore, because it's 10 years outdated. We come up with a plan of conservation and development.
This has nothing to do with the P O C D, no. These are just regulations that through, you know, like I said, them taking notes in the town hall.
It seems like this might come up with POCD as well. Right?
Very well might, yes.
25?
We're actually gonna be starting that in this fall, yes.
That's a current thing too, so all these regulations might change again in a year. And we'll all come back out again wondering why everything's changing, but it's because they're constantly being updated, because you can't just make rules one time and make the most sense. You might meet somebody at an event who's also in planning and development, which I think from experience, because they were you know, you got a wedding, somebody else in a different town that has a better regulation than ours. So sometimes we hear that and think, oh, that'll work in our town. Doesn't always, but then we try things and then we go through this planning, concentration, development, and things get changed again. So it's kind of the rule they make now isn't gonna be set in stone for the next 40 years. It might change again in a year.
Yeah, it's evolution. Things change. So I had a question about the, not a question, but a comment about the unregistered motor vehicles. There's no way you're gonna be able to screen them from view in your backyard. It's just not gonna happen.
Covering it with a tarp is screening.
Yeah, so every vehicle in the backyard has a tarp on it.
How many are you gonna have?
I don't think it's reasonable, to be honest with you. I think it's. You drive around people's backyards and you can see in their backyard, if they got a car back there. So be it. You
And
might,
backyard might be something different. It might be a car full of vehicles for business, it might be a solar, industrial solar field.
so you can't make regulations that fit everybody. It's not gonna work. But. To screen them with a fence or a tarp or whatever, I just don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's realistic. Well, 1-6. Anything else?
Is there anything else you wanna add?
Quick question. We'll call it a quiet conversation. Conservation. Now, from some.
Sir, can you please identify yourself?
For a particular question that you raised, why aren't some of those things maybe just brought up there?
The P O C D is a guide, it's not regulations, it's not enforceable, it's strictly like a master plan of how we want to see the community develop and grow. But it's not binding, it's not a regulation, it's strictly just a master plan, kind of a definition of what we like to see happening in this town, what we don't want to see happening in this town.
So the regulations drive the plan, basically, keep the plan on track.
They should be considered as part of the plan, but it's much more the 1,000-foot view of, you know, we want this to be a farming community, rural, that kind of deal. It doesn't break down into yes and no's on P O C D.
The gentleman that is the contractor for Eversource, you know, hands off, it's hard work. I prior neighbor worked at Eversource. You guys are on call a lot, and now with all the storms that are coming on, it's like, I know there's staging areas, but there's some people that like to be outside the staging area or whatever. Me personally, if there's a big storm and we know it's coming on, and then there's been a lot of customer complaints in the past couple of years about, you know, type of storage being ready, having the trucks available, you know, because we have storage, these storms that we've had for 89 days without power. I would rather have the guy's truck in the yard where I'm not gonna be able to call for 8 days, if that guy's truck in the yard could be on site somewhere to get something fixed. Or it might cut 1 to 2 days, 3 days off to 8 or 9 days. Just recently, with the, I think Michael Birch that we had, I had trees down in my yard, and they took out stuff in the church on Scannick Road and all kinds of power lines. And those guys were working like gangbusters, and stuff back on like a day and a half or something like that. You know, they should be considered like, you know, the first responders and all that stuff. I'm not sure if you guys are or not, but you guys keep the country moving without power. You're not gonna have the hospitals and everything else running right. Yeah, you have that generator stuff, but you still need these guys working and have the ability to get somewhere quick. So.
Well, I don't know if you heard, Danielle pretty much described how she would handle the situation like that, which I thought was pretty decent. Saying,
No, I understand. I just see that it said it was something on the news that right now there is.
currently it says no commercial vehicles, period. So if we don't do anything with this, Right now, none,
So that would be that.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
And real quick, Mr. Chairman, you said you're right, there is hundreds of trucks over there. Reason being, it's an airport, we fly guys in, they fill those trucks, right? A guy like me, I live around the corner from the airport, I wanna have dinner with my family before I drive out to Michigan. I bring my bucket truck home, or I have a source that says, hey, babe, I need you there today, those guys are coming in tomorrow, right?
And I think this kind of comes back again to, is it there or are you know, parked or stored kind of deal, you know? So if it's there
That's up to
365 days out of the year, it's one thing versus, you know, couple events, and
You know, I no longer stage it there, cause I don't want the problems, but, I do have my truck there occasionally, Jim probably sees it all the time. But I just decided to say, hey, I don't want, I'm 10 minutes from show up when Windsor locks, I'll just drive there and get it, but if I wanna have dinner with my family before I drive out, yes, I do bring it.
And Daniel, what would you say percent of enforcement is complaint driven? It's 100%, isn't it?
100%,
So-
yeah.
Nothing happens enforcement wise unless there's a complaint.
But I don't know who would complain about a chicken in someone's house. You could have a dog in here.
Yes, sir.
Jeff was about to rise. I want to read the screening portion. I've got a small farm tractor. Really doubt my neighbors want to see a blue tarp all over my.
Farm tractor doesn't require screening. No, we're not on registered vehicles. That's non-commercial construction equipment. That's different.
That doesn't require this thing.
Correct.
Another thing we do with the campers, and I appreciate getting to the front yard, and spend a lot of money. 30 feet, common sense wise, this is 32 feet, these tables right here. Most people don't have a long drive. You kind of fit 2 cars in a truck. Common sense tells me on its own, on a four-way intersection or an intersection, having back there, if you're going down Rocket Street, Main Street, it really doesn't matter if it's gonna be that close to the road. It seems like, I know you wanna be a little vague and stuff, you kind of have to be a little more precise with some things, because when you leave it open, you can handle people with the wall. So I mean, stuff, you gotta get a little bit more explicit. But going back to the camper thing, I think maybe intersections makes more sense. You want to have that view going straight down the road. When we talk again, you've got a longer driveway, but most people I know in town don't. So 30 feet, and then you've got 30 feet, when you got a 30-foot camper that gets to 60 feet, they've got a 50-foot driveway. Not a lot of people have long driveways, so I just don't see that number working. And maybe instead it says, let's do it at an intersection, it's gonna be blocking view, but on the straightaway,
I can't hear you very.
Well, he's saying that the 30-foot setback for an RV, but then again, now you're talking about a turn in the road, but you're also trying to protect the occupants there too. If it's, you know, a multi-use property and somebody's trying to pull out of the driveway and can't see because the RV is too close to the road. I mean, it's just trying to keep that line of sight regardless of where it is, on a straightaway, on the side of, you know, on a curve or on an intersection. You know, again, you could break down 1,000 different scenarios of where this could work and couldn't work, but we need a starting point somewhere. Right now, it says you can't. So at least if we get that 30-foot setback to not have a line of sight issue, you know, if there are circumstances that come up, this can be revisited again.
Zoning Board of Appeals, so.
Yes, Dan.
Ted Szymanski, 166 Rockville Road, Windsorville. Based upon your discussion, are you gonna omit having to have the unregistered vehicles screened from the road? Because as Jim said,
We'll have a discussion amongst us if there's the majority agreement.
I just think if you drive around town, I don't see too many places where there's multiple cars and vehicles behind somebody's house in an unsightly manner. You don't see them. It's a problem.
They're out there.
Yeah.
The unregistered vehicles?
Yeah.
So my top complaints that I get, roosters and chickens, actually no, unregistered vehicles would be the #1 phone call I get. And they've got, chickens and roosters and RVs. Those, every once in a while I get a random one that I'm like, whoa, what? because it's different, and but those three, and I can look back, I've got all the ZEO logs and reports for the last 3 years, I'll probably put together a percentage of how many phone calls I get versus all complaints, but I will tell you, those are the absolute nonstop top 3 calls I get every single day.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, pertaining to roosters. Like, did I hear, again, I haven't been able to read this yet, but did I hear that there's not gonna be roosters allowed, or?
Roosters are allowed on acres of 3 or more, that's already in the regulations.
Okay,
And the town is split half and half. Some people say, oh, we don't care, we love roosters, but believe me, I guarantee you, if you have a rooster next to a neighbor who doesn't like it and you have less than 3 acres, they will be calling my telephone at 8:30 in the morning. We can't please everyone, so the regulations already say 3 acres. We didn't change that, we just kept it at 3 acres.
oh, so that's an existing.
Yeah, that's existing, yeah.
Is there a rule about it?
Is what?
Is there a rule about coop size, like the ratio?
Yeah, that's kind of getting more into, I mean, we don't regulate a size and maybe that's something for, I don't know who regulates.
There's a maximum size that you can't have over 200 square feet. There's not a minimum one.
It's an average about 2 square foot of chicken.
So
They don't need 10.
maybe that's I don't know if that's a human society or, I don't know who else, but that wouldn't be, we wouldn't, zoning, like it could be a bunch of different other departments, but the zoning department wouldn't regulate that for the sake of animal safety. And I agree, I'm a huge animal person, I agree with you, but we don't have that kind of jurisdiction.
They're perfectly happy on 2 square feet. They're perfectly happy in 2 square feet.
2 square feet?
On chicken.
Yeah, I don't have it. I'd have to look, I'd have to research, do my research if I got one, so.
Okay. You,
Mike, may I make one more comment?
yes, Rand, you may.
I don't need the mic.
Okay,
I just think it's really important for all of us to remember that every taxpayer in this room is vested. The planning and zoning board is vested. We all live in the same community. What I think I'm hearing is that everybody just wants to feel like they've been treated fairly and equally. And what we don't want is an unenforced zoning regulation or any kind of a law or regulation to be used in a punitive manner. We don't want that hammer hanging over the top of our head. And if we're gonna have.
so you would want somebody purposely going around looking for violations?
Well, that's not the point I'm making.
Well,
The point I'm
that's what I'm
making is
hearing though, that's up to correct me if I'm wrong.
regulation.
Well, right now, there's a lot of regulations on here that we're trying to make them less restrictive, and if we enforce them as are now, we'd have a real issue, wouldn't we?
I understand that, but my final point is, if we have regulations that aren't being enforced, take them off the books, get rid of them. What are they there for?
So you want us to enforce all the regulations?
They're there for what if? That's my only point.
I would take more.
People just want fair and equitable treatment, and they don't want to feel as though regulation is gonna be used in a punitive manner. That's all.
That's not the purpose of this commission. That's not the purpose of this commission. We're out now to, yeah. We're not out to get anybody.
Okay, I think we've heard everybody's input, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing, PZ, what am I, doesn't matter.
Here you go.
PZ 2024-10, Town of East Windsor, requesting a text amendment to zoning regulations, section 201.1, definitions, 305.3, farm regulations, 403 and 507.4, permanent accessory uses, and WHP, 404 permitted accessory uses, 405 temporary permits / seasonal events, 503.3 temporary seasonal outdoor dining, and 601.5 automotive uses.
There's a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Okay, so for items of discussion, Jim proposes that we strike the screening requirements. What's the consensus? You're in agreement also, Dave?
Yep.
By you, Stacy?
I disagree, I like this.
You want to leave the screening in? Sandra? What's your opinion? To leave the screening or take it out? Leave it in? I'm leaning towards removing it just because it's difficult to define, as we had talked a lot about, what do you mean by screening? So I guess we're taking this in baby steps, and we start off with, okay, move them to the back, and then we'll see if that satisfies the complainants.
Yep.
So that would be under
L. Page 8.
page 8. Item L1, we would strike screen from view. And we'd also do the same with number 5 for the non-commercial construction equipment. We'll strike it there also.
We're gonna put personal or no?
You want to add the word personal, non-commercial / personal use? Okay. And were there any other items that people wanted to amend?
So getting back to the 30-foot property line, you think we should cut it down to 25?
I disagree. If you've got a 22-foot or a 25-foot dually pickup truck backing in a 30-foot trailer into a 50-foot driveway, you need enough room to maneuver that truck into the driveway, hook up that travel trailer safely without impeding traffic on the road. 30 feet back, you gotta be able to move. If you've got a crew cab with an 8-foot bed, you're 25 feet already. Then add on your bumper pole. You need a foot or two off the road just to let anybody go by, any kid walking by, anybody walking by on the street. I think 30 feet is what you need to be safe.
Okay.
And I think people that have less than a 30-foot driveway probably are trying to shoehorn that 30-foot bumper pole trailer into that driveway because their truck is halfway out on the road.
And again, this is a starting point, you know,
Okay, yeah.
and if people have extenuating circumstances, they can, you know, plead a hardship.
Exactly. It's only safety and.
Okay. We're fine with making these corrections. We don't need to do anything different as far as these minor strikes wouldn't require another CROG, no, review. Okay. And anyone have any, other edits or comments? No?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed at this point. Does everyone need any additional time or feel comfortable to vote on this?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, then, I'll entertain a motion on this.
I make a motion to approve PZ 2024 10. Town of East Windsor is requesting a text amendment and zoning regulations, section 201-1, definitions 305-3, farm regulations 403 and 507-4, permanent accessory uses and WHP, 404 permanent accessory uses, 405 temporary permits / seasonal events, 503-3 temporary seasonal outdoor dining, and 601-5 automotive uses as amended.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Does anybody need a recess at all? We good to continue?
I'm good.
Okay. Next on our agenda is a new public hearing. It's PZ 2024-12. The town of East Windsor is requesting a text amendment to zoning regulation 817, planned commercial development district. Mike, you wanna take us through this?
So, we had intended on being able to kind of display this so that everybody could follow along, but we don't have access to the projector tonight. So back, I guess it's probably almost 2 years ago. Section 817 was adopted by the commission, and it's essentially a master plan regulation that was developed to facilitate high quality mixed use projects within commercial corridors and commercial nodes already established in town. So that regulation, as it stands now, currently requires an applicant to come in and present a master plan to the commission showing the development of the site. Again, these are for larger scale developments, so not small, single building type projects. It would involve a zone change, it would involve a public hearing, and then the preparation of site plan. And so that, again, that amendment and that regulation has been on the books. And so we were looking through and had several people come into the office and meet with us about use of the regulation and sort of the way that it is, the eligibility and boundaries are currently established. And so in looking at the way that the development corridors kind of are already in town areas that are commercial and industrial zones, there were areas that don't fall within the current eligibility. So right now, to even be eligible to seek a zone change and master plan, to even be able to come in and submit the application and ask the commission for consideration, you need to be within the areas designated within the plan of conservation and development, future land use plan, as Route 5 corridor or industrial core, or the northern business corridor. So this isn't all of Route 5, all of the industrial, it's those specific areas as defined on that map. And the minimum district in those areas is 4 acres. So what we are proposing is to add a third set of criteria within the eligibility and boundaries section, which is 817.3, which would allow for projects to be eligible if they are a minimum of 10 acres in size, have accessibility on a state road, and do not fall within an area designated as rural. So again, we hope to be able to show the map, but the plan of conservation and development has a future land use plan map that was adopted, and it's been consistent in that
this plan, I think, was largely included in the most recent plan of conservation development, but was derived from the 2006, so it's more or less been on the books for almost 20 years. And if you're thinking of the town as approximately a square, everything on most of the right half of the town in totality falls within a rural area, so would be completely ineligible. There are portions along the Connecticut River, particularly in the southern half of town, that are designated as rural and are also not eligible. So again, the only thing that's proposing to be changed here is that if you have a parcel that is at least 10 acres, is not within a rural area and has access to a state road, you then are eligible to come in and seek a master plan amendment with the commission. There's no change to the review process. It would require the same public hearings, same consistency with the rest of the document. It's just it's meant to sort of allow for some of those parcels that don't fall within those core areas in this plan, the MAC, Residential Growth and Guide Plan, to be eligible. And the primary driver for this is that, or one of the reasons why we wanted to create this third category is that all of Warehouse Point, for example, is completely separate from these areas currently. So the current industrial core, Route 140, those areas, there's nothing in this that mentions Warehouse Point. So this would allow for those larger parcels, again, to come before you. But a significant portion of the town would remain ineligible.
Okay. Does commission kind of understand what the request here and the process is?
Yep.
Okay, anybody have any questions to ask of this?
Not yet.
Yeah. I'll just put it out right now. I have no intention of closing this hearing tonight because of the fact that we don't have the maps, we don't have all the information to share. So I will give everybody an opportunity to comment on this, but we will definitely be continuing this hearing on this. All right, so I'm gonna open it up right now to the people that have signed up. First one is Gail Wadier, thank you.
Mike.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Gail Wadier. My husband Lester and I have lived at 117 Scantic Road since 1976. First, let me say that I think the commission members here do a wonderful job. Your jobs are not easy, and all the boards in town, I think your jobs are probably the most time consuming. And I do applaud the planning and zoning office for their attempt to improve the current zoning regulations. That being said, if I understand this latest proposed amendment correctly, it leaves me incredibly angry and frustrated. You alluded to Warehouse Point and the 140 corridor and Route 5 corridor. What you didn't allude to that falls under this, if I'm correct, is 191, which runs from Route 5, it's a state road, all the way into Broadbrook. And almost all of Phelps Road is non-rural. Scantic Village is non-rural. And even a little past where the village is. So if I understand this correctly, someone can come forward and say, oh, I want to do commercial development down all that corridor. And so they could submit for the zoning change and whatever, but that starts the process. This type of change has an enormous impact on certain areas of town. And I just listed the most obvious one. I jumped ahead of my notes. And I'm sure that people on this board, some of them, will remember what we've been through in Scantic with the Historical Society and them trying to do commercial business in the village with a special permit. Residents adamantly were opposed to that. And yet here we are again with a different version that they could leverage, which interestingly enough, is being submitted by our town planner. I could dust off all my old documentation regarding why commercial business in this area is a really bad idea. I'm not gonna go through that. Basically, overall, this would destroy the rural charm and fabric of this area, which I thought we were trying to preserve. Route 191 is not a commercial corridor. Not all state roads are equal. And this proposal is actually 10 times worse than the previous proposal that was trying to be put through because of the impact of Phelps and Scantic Village. You know, when you see a pasture, you can't assume it's rural. Because on Phelps Road, there's a lot of pasture land, and it's in this latest map I have from 2016, it is not rural, so it opens it all up. I'm sure there's some other areas in town that are impacted, but honestly, I just don't have the time to research all of them at this time. And this one is most near and dear to my heart. This is actually rewriting zoning code. To call it a text amendment implies that changes are just minor and potentially tweaks for clarification. This type of rewrite or addition to zoning regulations or to the PCD should go through a lengthy review process, not just a couple meetings, hopefully people hear about it, and potentially even a town vote, or this new process that you say is coming out that's gonna start for 2025. I'm pretty sure that the majority of town folks do not even realize this is before this commission tonight. Posting it in the Journal and Current, while that may be technically fulfilling legal obligations, does not really work in today's world. Times change and a sizable number of people don't even get the Journal or the Current. The planning office should adopt new procedures and processes for notifying residents of important changes. Two offhand I can think of, we do robocalls for like, let's go to the park and listen to music and food trucks. Why wouldn't we do a robocall for something so important as this? And also, there's a website landing page for the town. They list the same thing, what's going on in the town. Why isn't something like this so critical on that front page? Finally, and I think, is it Mike who spoke? I think he kind of is answering some of what my next points were. Finally, what or who is the driver for this momentous change? I think the person who submitted this change needs to be honest and share with everyone what motivated the submission, which I think you started to do. Did they just wake up one day and say to themselves, hey, I think this would be a great idea? Regardless if someone is a current resident or developer looking at a project for East Windsor, it is not the job of the town planner to make up new regulations so people can do what they want with their land instead of following the current regulations. I could be wrong, but this almost seems like this is where the submission is coming from. If you look at the map of the different properties in town and the owners that could potentially benefit, it starts to give you a picture. As my dad always said to me, follow the money, Gail, and you will find the truth. Once again, to the commission, thank you for your time, and I have every faith that you will do what is morally and ethically right for all of the residents in town. And thank you.
Bob Light.
Bob Light, 80 Rye Street, East Windsor. In the essence of time, I'm going to ask a very leading question, but I didn't want to open up a can of worms, and it got opened without me. First of all, I want to make a sincere compliment to this board and the permanent employees of the Planning and Development Department. I've been involved in town government, we used to call it politics, for over 50 years now in this town. And I've never seen such an open exchange of information. A credit to the chairman for allowing the dialogue that is way beyond the protocol of running a public hearing. Thank you for that. And I want to pay another sincere compliment without naming names, that when I've got personal concerns about roosters 2 doors down from me, or being able to park a camper in my front yard while I've got some construction going on in my house, and I want to live there instead of up at my girlfriend's house in Massachusetts, I'm gonna take it to the personal people that are responsible for that and go one-on-one, rather than make a big issue out of it in the town. So with that being said, I do want to say that I happen to understand that a person that I've talked to great extent about this very text amendment tonight is a former attorney that's dealt with this previous board and the people in the planning development town about real estate developments time and time and again, and I understand he put 2 pages into the record to be so rest assured, your interests are being looked out for while they're not being spoken about tonight. My personal interest is to say, I'd like to really know who and why this text amendment originated. Technically, I can tell you because I can see who signed it. I'd like to know if there's reasons that motivated that thing. And I'm not gonna go any further than that. I paid the compliments. I'm gonna tell you my personal feelings about this kind of thing. I'm for home rule versus regionalization. When I see Capital Region Council of Governments up at the top of a particular official forum, I say, come on, people, let's get involved so that we don't have things taken to court, so that we can solve things amongst the friends and neighbors and the taxpayers that Rand calls people that are shareholders of our community, and get this stuff taken together. I'm against mixed zoning. I'd like to clarify, I'm not gonna speak for Rand, but I think what he was getting at was something that I wanna kind of codify in my own words. I'm not for selective enforcement, and I don't know how you do that. It's pretty difficult to do, but I'm going on record as saying that, so if something comes on down the road, I'm gonna say, well, I spoke my piece. And other than that, well, we've all got we're all shareholders in this community. And the easiest way that I know how, you know, that survey that you put out there, so much time and effort went into that thing, absolutely unbelievable. The time and the money and the manpower that was put into that, and then to put it out to the public for whoever was willing to go about finding out what was said. And I think taxes was number 2, education was number 3, maybe taxes was number 2. The thing that mystified me was there was 7 areas that you gave a grade to and put on a chart. Number 7 at the bottom of the chart was family. I'll just give you my personal comments and then I'll leave. To me, life is all about health and happiness, and family comes first. And I'm gonna ask that all of my fellow members in this town and the people that are on the other end of this Zoom call, and especially the full-time paid people that have an interest in it to, just approach your conscience. And thank you for listening.
Rand family?
I will be very brief this time. Thank you for making it very clear that the public hearing would be continued. Certainly hasn't been enough time to do the proper amount of research to come to any type of conclusion on the application before you. I do appreciate that very much. And I will reserve comment until that time. I look forward to the maps. I look forward to seeing. I think the only thing I'm wondering is if the planning consultant, the town planner, or the zoning enforcement officer based on the GIS system that we have and the number of overlays that are available. Would they be able to put together a map for the general public that would show the specific?
I have made that exact request, yes.
Thank you very much. I'll see you guys at the next meeting.
That's great.
Ted Siminsky?
He's gone.
Okay. Pedro Vega?
Pedro Vega, South Water Street. Thank you, the board. Thank you, Danielle. My son was up here last week, but I don't speak as well as him. I'm gonna try my best, but I have concerns with this text amendment. Maybe it doesn't directly affect me right now, but I'll help you understand how it does after a couple questions. One of them, I think your name is Mike, right? Mike, you said the process won't change for approval, like, so this PowerPoint here where it looks like, once that the public hearing is only for the zone change only and not for the special use permit and the zone change. So would that be considered a change in process or?
That will not change. So that's how it stands currently.
So it's a proactive process right now, is what we're using?
So everything that's currently in that document is on the books and established. The only thing that we're proposing to change is on page 2, just that 817.3.
Right, so what this shows like,
There's
diagram of how it's gonna get done, how it gets executed from planning to execution.
Right, so there's 2 different ways that a project can go forward with approval, traditional or proactive. That's how it is now. And the regulatory review is the same. It's just a matter of which order the steps are in. But, so there's no change to that. It's in play now. There will be no.
So that's not part of your new text amendment, that's just something
That's already established, correct?
all right, cool. Now, this, I guess some of the questions are gonna be answered when the maps come out, like Brandon said and the other gentleman, about what exactly is the Route 5 corridor, where's that space? The industrial core, you mentioned Warehouse Point, is most of Warehouse Point considered rural, or is it not part of the Route 5 corridor? Or is that not something you can answer right now?
Warehouse Point is, there are 4 different areas on what's called the residential growth and guide plan. It's a village area, a rural area, a non-rural area, and a non-residential area. So Warehouse Point falls within what's called village area.
Okay, so that's considered rural, is that?
It's one of the 4. So the rural area is a separate category.
So, I see how it says right now it needs 4 acres and the amendment is 10 acres. Where I have an issue with this is I live on South Water Street and, I was lucky enough to have a 250,000 square foot distribution center put, 20 feet from my driveway. They work 24 hours a day. I don't know what kind of uses, has brought this, forward. But I'm also interested in knowing who the applicant, even if it is gonna be on the other side of town, they're my neighbors, I wanna know. I can tell you that having Parkside there has dramatically changed my life. They work 24/7, 7 days a week, sometimes 3, 4 in the morning. I don't know if their permit allows for that, I thought when we had the zoning meeting that it wasn't, I'm not sure, I can't speak on that, but, hearing backup alarms, hearing trucks. Also, another interesting point for the folks who have commercial vehicles and the linemen and plumbers and everyone else. I don't know if the planning and zoning commission knows this, but there's tractor trailers that are parked in Parkside's driveway idling at 2 in the morning, waiting for them to open up so they can go in there and offload. And I've never made a complaint because sometimes I'm out working at 2, 3 in the morning, the lineman, and I'm just like, I'm going to bed. But, these are the type of things that can come with this type of change. I understand the time needs progress and development and revitalization. I'm all for that. But I think there's spaces for it. And one of the biggest things that hurt me as a town resident was there was no notification. And like Madam here explained, she said, they used the legal angle where we didn't have to notify. I don't think that's right. I think that, hey man, there's 4 houses on that South Water Street Road. Someone came out and knocked on the doors and says, hey, you're not gonna like what I'm gonna tell you, but I feel that you should have this information. Rather than someone say, well, I didn't need to tell you. Well, I think that's kind of unfair, because now I got, like I said, several hundred square foot, 1,000 warehouse going 24/7, backup alarms and everything. And I'm sure no one on this board would like to have that across the street from their house. You know, so, you know, those I guess are my questions. It's, we can have the information to know which ones are rural areas, what's designated. Who is the person that walked into the office, Mike, if you don't mind telling us who sparked the conversation and say, hey, can we talk about these areas? I think that's very important. I don't know if there's some privacy concerns there or not, but I mean, Rand said, we're all vested in this community. I mean, we all pay taxes here, and we all have to support it. So I think information is key. You know, and again, I thank you guys for what you do. I know it's a thankless job, and it's hard. I yelled at you way back in the Silverman days, and I apologize, but now you know my emotion, my frustration, right? And I understand what you guys have. But I think for the rest of the town and this text amendment, I think it needs to be definitely dug in a little deeper. Thank you.
Barbara Greer. Okay. Stan Pulaski.
Okay, Stan Gillespie, right, looking, and I've looked, it says PDC, Planned Commercial Development District. So first thing I look at, I see this here, and lady made a nice comment about 191. We got Route 5, we got 140, and we got 191. There's a lot of areas there that probably have 10 acres or more that could possibly be. I come down, and I highlighted rural area. So, okay, going to the town website. Commercial zone information. I'd really like to see that map you're having, because this map doesn't give me anywhere on it that says rural area. It gives me A1, A2, you know, I go all the way down through manufacturing, everything. I don't see anything that says rural area. So I think you're gonna have to come up with a little better definition on that in your next meetings. You know, God forbid that the state of Connecticut decided that, just like the busway, Rice Street could be a new, you know, electric vehicle way, could be a state highway. Plenty of area on that allows, possibly allowed at 10 acres, still to be developed. On your plans that are actually on your plans that are on the website in the town, you've got some areas marked as farmland that the development rights have been bought out. It's still marked for, and it was bought before that was printed. That is still marked as developable land. And one of the things that being very close to the solar fields, you know, I didn't get any say in this, what was stuck down our throats for the solar. I can look across the street and see through a tree line that I've not been able to see through. And I'll give myself 58 years, because I probably really didn't pay too much attention at 1 or 2 years old. As this gentleman talked about, it's not my town, but Alden is farther down on Rice Street. I can tell you when they back in at, say, 11 o'clock, when I'm letting that dog out, say he has to go out to go later on. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I can hear him back into that dock and it's snap in. I can tell you what that 90 dB to 100 dB backup warrant sounds like when they go in, or when they hook to the trailer. And that is a significant ways away, but I can hear it. So everything that we do, I don't know how to best say it, it just needs to have the best interest of the town. I went through this and I flipped through a traditional process and a proactive process. Second one down on the traditional process submission, they have a 70% concept plan. Look onto the submission of the application, change, it has a 30% design concept plan. There's no second chance in that proactive plan for the public, really. I don't see anything else where it says I gotta have 70% in there in that plan. And the public is, and after being stuck with a solar, and I'm seeing 30%, it doesn't feel warm and fuzzy. So, in being a former zoning board of appeals member, co-chair, 2 terms, input to a board is very, very important. It's very important to you guys and gals to receive as much information to make an informed decision. And that proactive process, just by me looking at it, it's my bad, so looking at it right now, I think that needs to be reviewed too. So, just a little bit of food for thought. I plan on speaking for the next one, and it's a thankless job, and thank you for all your service.
Burma Shaw.
Downtown, town website, and I called the office today for more information, but, I'd like to do more research and contact you for more information. Especially now, and, land ownership, partial sizes. The specified partial size, more honest. Thank you.
Okay. That's everyone that signed up. Is there anyone left in the audience that would like to comment on this application? Is there anyone online that would like to comment on this application?
Yeah, I would if I could.
Okay, please identify yourself.
Yep, Keith Yagaloff, Depot Street. Want to first thank you all for your hard work on the commission. Know how hard it is to go through the last set of text amendments, and now you have this one coming before you, and you're working hard, and we really appreciate it. This proposed amendment could have far-reaching implications for land use and development in East Windsor. The change opens the door for commercial activities to take place in areas of town that were previously residential or less developed. With this amendment, there's a risk that multiple areas across the town could automatically be designated PCD zones by default without specific designation or advance notice to the public. These areas, which meet the criteria of being 10 acres or more, abutting a state road and not in a rural area, would essentially become eligible for commercial development without the community being specifically notified of these changes. I'm concerned about this and the potential for this amendment to create significant changes across our town's landscape without adequate public involvement. When economic development is, while it's important, it must be balanced with the needs and expectations of the community. The broad criteria for PCD eligibility could lead to developments that might not align with our town's long-term planning goals. We could see commercial developments in non-commercial zones without the need for zone change. I want to point out that there could be a change to the rural map in the future that would automatically open up other areas as approved areas without with only the requirements for approval for the rural map itself. And I'm concerned about this being essentially a text amendment that creates broad zoning changes by default. So I have a lot of concerns, and I hope you'll take those concerns and the concerns of the remainder of the public into account. I'm sure you will when you make your decision on this text amendment. Thank you.
And thank you. Anyone else online that would like to comment on this? Okay. We did receive one written statement also from Mark Barberi. It's going to be scanned in and uploaded to the website as part of the documents. Okay, at this point, like I said, I have no intention of closing this. There's a lot of information that needs to be, added and addressed, so I'd entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
On the date, Mike,
Our next meeting,
September.
1 second. September 10th.
I make a motion, we continue PZ 2024 12, Town of East Windsor is requesting a text amendment to zoning regulations, section 817, Planned Commercial Development District, PCD, to September 10th, 2024.
There's a motion to continue the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is continued till September 10th. Those.
Oh, that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next item on our agenda, we have no old business or new business. Under other business, we have a informal discussion on 35 North Road. Who's here to speak on this?
So Jay here.
Yeah.
You wanted.
That's all for one time.
We have handouts, yes.
What he got?
Yeah. These are yours, Mike, right?
That's mine, yeah.
Well, my CEO, find him with the variance.
They had. If that each has a post.
Here, Mike.
Yes, I do need to, thank you.
Anybody want a full size?
I'm good with.
I think we're good this.
I'm good.
Thank you. Just in case. Good evening. For the record, JR Russo and Associates here representing DCP Properties. Dennis Patel, who was one of the principals in DCP, I think he's online, and his son Rishi, I think, is also probably online, I believe. Rishi is,
Yep.
okay. So what we wanted to talk about informally tonight, and I'm gonna try to make this brief because it's already late. And this is a parcel that's on North Road. It's on the north side of North Road and essentially for all practical purposes behind WB Mason. It's about 60 to 70 acres in total size. And it has numerous frontages along North Road, but actually the driveway that goes into WB Mason is part of this parcel. WB Mason has an easement to use that driveway. It actually belongs to this piece. They use it for access to come around behind their building, and we would be using it for access for this proposed development that we wanted to talk to you about briefly here tonight. The Patels bought this, I don't know, about 2 years ago, I think, and he's developed other properties in East Windsor. The Comfort Inn is his, he developed that, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I don't remember exactly. He also owns the piece right next to it on the right side of the Cracker Barrel driveway as you pull in, which is about 4 or 5 acres. He purchased that a couple of years ago, and we're working on a couple of things over there that we've been in to see staff about. And then this piece, and right now he's got a couple of developers interested in doing what we would call a travel center. And I've given you some information there. Mr. Patel has done other travel centers with Pilot, which is one of the corporates that builds these things across the country. He's got one in Chicopee right now that they're just starting. He's done one in Hampshire that's finished. And this one would fit fairly nicely on this piece of land. And we've given you a concept that kind of shows it behind the building, which is WB Mason. The building would consist of about 11,000 square feet, which would house a restaurant, a deli. And if you flip through the pages, I've given you some information there as to what will be in it. The one that they did, I believe, in New Hampshire had a Wendy's, had a Dunkin' Donuts in it. This one would not have a Wendy's. If it came here, it would probably have a McDonald's. McDonald's has been looking to locate these ones there for 30 some odd years. And they've been on various parcels and come very close numerous times, and it never happened. I think they would probably come here. They would certainly entertain coming here. They would also obviously serve the trucking industry with fuel islands, cars with fueling, truck parking for probably 150, 180 trucks, auto parking, and jobs. If you go to the last, I think it's on the last page. The last page of the information that we sent you. And this is based on the one in Chicopee that Pilot is going to be involved in, the Patels are developing. It's similar in size to this in terms of what it would look like. And they're predicting 70 full-time jobs at the truck between the travel center, 30 employees, 30 for Wendy's, 10 in the deli, and 20 part-time jobs, 10 at Wendy's and 10 in the deli. They also have projected some property tax revenue for that particular facility at about, between personal property and real estate, about $700,000 a year. So I did some looking around to try and check that, and I did find one of these. There's one down in Milford on I-95. And it's similar in size to this. However, it's 25 years old, so it's really not comparable. They've got the property assessed down there at about $9 million. At the 720 for the Chicopee project, that would be an assessment here in East Windsor somewhere around $20 to $22 million. And one down in Milford is at $9 million. But like I said, the building's 25 years old, so it's really not comparable to this. Anyway, we wanted to talk a little bit about those numbers. So the reason really that we're here is the Patels have a developer that's interested in coming in and doing this. Could be a Pilot, could be a Love's. I think there's another one called TC, I believe. And I'm gonna be honest, I've never been in any of these. I'm not a big traveler. I kind of a homebody. I've never been to one of these. There's a new one over in 84 in Wellington that was recently built. There's another one up in Sturbridge, right near the intersection of 84 and Mass Pike. I've never been in a single one of them. But the reason we are here is we showed this to staff. They seem to be very interested. Your first selectman was also at the meeting. He seemed to be very interested. And we wanted to show it to you informally, which we've done with many projects, or I've done before you, to have you tell me that, Jay, you're crazy. There's no way in the world we're ever going to approve this. So take your bags and we'll see you later. Or, yeah, maybe, maybe it works. One of the things I think that's a good location with in terms of this property is there's no residential. There's no houses here. This development's about 760 feet off the road behind the WB Mason building. There are no houses. It's pretty much isolated back there. The property to the north in Enfield is all industrial, commercially zoned. The office building that you see off to the left of this is the one that's right on the town line. As you go down and across the brook immediately on the right, that's what you see over here to the left. The only residential properties are all the way over on Route 5 on Prospect Hill Road. There's some residential homes over there, but again, those are probably 900 or 1,000 feet away from this. Is a good distance. It's all wooded, and there are a lot of wetlands, so I'm not sure how much development there would ever be. And there's a fair amount of wetlands on this piece. The development is limited here, but
We feel that we can fit this in here. It would require a wetland permit, but, we feel it's a pretty good location for this. Now, one of the things that we did talk a little bit about with staff, and it came up, was the traffic.
Ding, ding, ding. That's the first question I had.
The traffic. And that's the first question we asked of the Patels. We said, well, what about the traffic here? So, we're not traffic engineers. We always, hire a consultant to do these things, and he's done these projects in other states with BHB, who's another engineering firm, and you've seen him here in East Windsor. And they have a traffic division, and they took a preliminary look at this and said, yeah, we think this can work here. Is it gonna require improvements? Absolutely. Will it be widening? Absolutely. But they seem to think that this could work and that DOT could approve this. It is a state highway, certainly, so DOT has the final say on what could happen here. And certainly if this came before you in form of an application, that any concerns that you have as a commission, as you know, can be passed along to DOT so that they can consider it when it gets to that point. But that was one of the first questions we had. What about the traffic? How could it work? And currently, WB Mason does get tractor trailers, probably almost on a daily basis. I think they go in and out of there with deliveries. Their own trucks go in and out every day. But that is one of the questions that came up, and certainly would require a full traffic study and traffic impact statement to be brought before you in terms of an application coming here. And would all have to go before DOT and be approved by DOT.
So as you know, Jay, your office is right across the street.
Yes.
So when you come up, if you don't make that light, when W Mason's truck is taking a left, he blocks everybody going in queue, going all the way back.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I'll give you my initial thoughts. When I looked at this, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but what I see, and having driven this for the past almost 40 years, when you're coming from Route 5 and you're heading east, and you get to that pinch point by Don's Auto.
Yeah.
I would envision that being 2 lanes coming all the way through Showham Road, through the traffic signal with turning lanes, and through this intersection where the WB Mason driveway is before it flares back in. So there's full turning lanes, there's bypass lanes for everybody to be able to get through.
So would you flare back in right before the trolley museum
Down by
or
the trolley.
past the trolley museum and let that lane go into Winkler?
That would be up to DOT, but if it went all the way to Winkler,
That would be.
Cause they did some widening for the Noble
Yeah.
also there.
they did.
Yep.
Yep, when we did the Noble, they widened it. Now, that's not
No.
striped as a lane, but there's enough room to get by there.
To move.
They call it the passing lane, or
Right.
call it.
Exactly.
Not
Without
without
impeding flow.
So that was my first thought on this, that 2 lanes of traffic would continue all the way by this site. So that there's room to create dedicated turning lanes and enough room for a bypass for everybody to get through.
So basically, it's a big truck stop.
It is, it is.
It'd be great if we're off the highway.
Most of
Like
these
right off the
Six
highway.
tenths of a mile
Yeah.
from 91, I
I
measured.
know.
that hill at 140 is substantial.
Mhm.
So trucks getting stopped on that hill in the wintertime, it's gonna be challenging sometimes.
Would they be willing to
I'll be
move the
honest with
driveway?
you. Would they?
Willing to move it to the other
They
side of the
can't.
lot?
Can I?
No, I don't think
Wetlands
they
down
can.
there?
I think
That's
it's
right near the residences.
It's too wet.
It is too wet down
I
there.
think it's too wet.
Okay,
But
because they have that.
when we talk
Clear
about
area
truck
there.
traffic, having lived there now for decades. And what you probably see or occasionally, but what you don't know is that, of course, some of this traffic's gonna leave, but the Penske facility that's up the street from us. Obviously, we rent a lot of trucks. They also are a fueling station. There's a lot of tractor trailers that come off the highway to fuel there because they have a diesel fueling station.
Hey, we proved that too.
Yes, they're coming through the industrial.
If there was gonna be any traffic and they said no.
It-
So we think there is.
Now, that traffic that does come up our road will end up over on Newberry Road, so there's gonna be some change in the traffic pattern there. But we get a lot of trucks, continuing all day.
So I could also see, truckers that know the area and trying to avoid that hill may end up coming off the Walmart
They-
exit and
they
coming
can
up
come off of
around,
Walmart, come
Yeah,
off
I
of
think-
Fire.
right,
Yeah.
right by all the
Yeah,
Yeah,
Prospect Hill residences, yeah.
and I think, you know, if it were built, once they find it, they'll figure out how to get there and it's, I think it's a good location in terms of this, and the other thing, I guess, is what the developers are looking at is, and I'm not a trucker, and I don't, like I said, I don't travel that much, but when you look at Route 91 and you start down in New Haven at 95 and go all the way up, there's not a single one of these.
nothing.
No,
There are
No,
none.
you're right, nothing.
Down south, there's a ton of these.
yeah,
Yep. But you get 90.
but you get into Virginia and further down, then
Yeah.
they're,
5Ks are everywhere.
I mean,
Yep.
I know of one up in, it's actually a pilot up in, Lebanon, New York,
New Hampshire,
yeah, no, New York,
oh, New York.
yeah,
okay.
you head out Mass Pike and.
Yeah,
head
so
out
Oh, right
that
there
way.
in Austerlitz.
Yeah.
Yep, right at the first exit, yes.
Yeah.
There is
So
one.
they've been looking for something on 91, I guess, for a while. And of course, a lot of it, you know, relates to the trucking industry and their regulations where these drivers can only drive for a certain number of hours and they gotta get off the road. And
16
if they're
hours.
doing 91, there is no.
And,
there's nowhere to go.
when the snow hits and they start banning tractor trailers, they need a place to pull over
They
too.
need a place to pull over. So if you want to approve this tonight, that would be wonderful. But really, all they're looking for is, are we crazy? Maybe it could happen.
You will, you know, like we've even heard tonight, you know, in the dead of night, sound travel is pretty good. And there's gonna be a lot of activity at nighttime there. So these houses on Prospect Hill Road may be affected by that.
Possibly, I guess.
I mean, you may wanna look at sound barriers or something to try to help mitigate something with that. That would be my major concern is the sound that's, you know, cause these guys idle when they're sleeping at night and they want their AC running or whatever. The newer tractors have got pony engines on them. The older ones,
Yeah,
they idle.
They do. Well, the thing that I would say about that is certainly we could look into some screening in terms of noise reduction and what I would see here immediately is we've got a fairly sizable development. We're gonna have a ton of topsoil.
Berm.
We could make a very, very good sized berm along that entire west side to cut a lot of this off.
Well, I
As
mean,
well as something else on top of it.
I don't know if you have the ability to scoot it a little to the right, cause it looks like you're awfully close to the property line
Possible.
on the left side
I
there.
mean, we might be able to scoot it over a little bit. I mean, this
Give it
is
a
our-
little
you know, this is our first
rotation, yeah,
Concept
But-
that it's,
especially if you're talking berming, you definitely need
yeah,
that.
we need room for that.
Yeah.
That could take up 100 feet itself.
How many trucks you talking, like 150?
150.
Probably
That's-
150, 160, and
That's-
then another 50 cars or so, 50
That's-
car spots.
That's a lot coming down the main artery of our town.
And how does that handle with WB Mason backing up their trucks on the west side of their building, which I get is their problem, but the traffic hazard
Yeah, if
when
you-
that tractor trailer
If you
backs
look at,
up.
you look at their building, they swing in behind the building and then they pull due north. You can see where that pull off is so that they can back into the docks.
I used to see their docks are on
That's
the
a
west
lot.
side.
I mean, this is
They
basically
docks on the
putting
west
in a
side.
rest stop is what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's like putting in a rest.
There's trucks parked on the west side every morning when I drive by.
I guess I don't pay attention.
That's a lot of trucks, Jay.
It is.
Can I ask questions?
Sure.
One, do you know if you said VHP looked at track?
Mhm.
So if they're gonna use the same curb cut, will the WB Mason contribute to the trip counts for OSTA? Or you don't know that yet based on numbers?
I think it's gonna clog up the whole artery.
Trip count would be part of their traffic study. OSTA doesn't look at trip counts. OSTA looks at
Yeah.
parking spaces and square footage.
So you're gonna incorporate all that so that it will,
Yeah, they would look at our traffic and all the background traffic as well.
so the only other, and I'm at a handicap, because I know you went over this with Ruth, but what's the special permit designation that it would come in under?
Well, we could come in under your new regulation that nobody has used yet.
The PC.
The piece, exactly.
Well, that would require more than one use, I think.
Does it?
Well, that's, I guess, up for some interpretation, but,
You know, we did talk about that a little bit, or it could come in the traditional way with with a site plan. Because we're in the B3 zone and it's an allowable use in that zone.
And is this gonna be considered parking or what's the?
They're parking overnight.
What type of use are we?
No, this
I'm
is,
looking
this
at the
would be
use
considered,
tables.
if you look at the use table
Yeah.
under the B3 and you go to automotive filling and re-energizing station. Anything.
I have it here. Automotive,
I mean, I love to see the town grow and I love, I think it's
filling,
just gonna,
re-energizing,
yeah.
it's a
it's just gonna clog the main artery in town.
special use permit with the notation number 10. Automotive filling station with no automobile sales or service.
I don't say no too often. I don't like it.
That's why we're here.
I just think I think it's just gonna.
Well, I mean, traffic is gonna have a lot to do with it and I think,
Huge.
I think noise is gonna have a lot to do with it too.
That's 24/7.
It definitely is. I mean, it's basically putting in a rest stop is what we're doing.
I'd love to see a one way in, one way out type of pathway, so that you're coming off of one road and then going out on the other. It seems a lot to be up and down that one shot with all this.
Because you definitely will get the automotive use out of this
Oh,
too.
you're gonna get a lot of automotive.
Yeah,
Because you got-
people coming through in the middle of the night. Hey, there's a place open that I can get something to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
24/7,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And you got a club right next door.
That's,
I'm just saying.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just one of five though.
yeah, I mean,
I don't like it.
those are gonna be your two biggest obstacles, I think, noise and traffic.
Noise and traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing some concerns.
And from every direction too. You'll get them from the King Street coming that way and you'll get them from the Walmart way coming that way and then you get it from coming up the hill that way.
Yeah.
And once the word out, it's a, huge truck stop. They're all build it and they will
Right,
come.
it'll be in the GPS,
And
you know.
they'll come.
Where,
Yeah.
And then just for charging too, right? 'Cause you're.
There would be car charging.
yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of people come.
Absolutely.
Like, right, people going to Walmart.
Yep.
Like I said, that's the major artery in town.
How wide is that
Will
driveway?
traffic light be able to handle?
No,
we would probably widen
They gotta change it.
Sophia's time
30,
for that, all the traffic
or
on the
something in
exit.
that nature.
Cause I would think you'd probably want it at least 4 lanes wide for incoming turning, exiting turning, I don't know.
There would be at least 3 lanes,
Yeah.
for sure.
But they're coming in, they gotta go out.
Yeah, try to
Because,
left turn at 5 PM out
Does
of that.
well,
Everybody,
there's a traffic light there.
No, there's no.
No, there's no.
No
traffic
traffic light?
No.
No.
traffic lights in.
I thought this was at the-
well, no, that's what I'm saying. It's past-
Show 'em road.
Yeah.
traffic
Show 'em
light.
road,
Yeah.
traffic
Oh.
light. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So
Yes.
this is the WB Mason.
Yeah, yeah,
Drive.
yeah, yeah.
It's past the light.
That's,
Yeah.
so we're beyond the light.
Yeah, that's
Two
bad.
trucks try to pull out of that and the light's red,
And
you're
you're
now
blocked up.
blocked the.
That was my first comment.
I thought it was at a light.
Oh,
No.
no. It's past. One truck sits there thinking, left, you're stuck. I drive that road every day. I'm sure you do too.
That kind of,
Many times,
Well, you do too.
many times.
where's shown?
Yeah,
Down
that's
here,
right.
down
Yeah,
here.
show them is a little bit to the west.
Yeah.
Yep,
Same entrance every Mason goes into. Take a left, go in there.
yep, that same driveway.
That's a tough sell. Even with
That's
all
why I
the,
asked if it could go in someplace else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of traffic needs a light.
Yeah, and then we would not get a light there, it's mostly.
yeah,
Yeah.
unless you reroute Showham Road, no.
Yeah.
Well,
Or you
we can't reroute Showham Road, there was some discussion.
or you
although-
purchase the property next to it and.
Yeah. And put the driveway
Straight
opposite,
up.
so you had a 4-way intersection.
Be better, but I still don't like all the traffic in the main artery.
But I think that's a must. I don't think you can exit out with that kind of, especially talking tractor trailer traffic to exit out without a light.
I mean, we gotta drive that road for the next 50 years or how long we're alive. I don't wanna get stuck behind 8 million trucks,
And you will.
and you will.
All right, I'm hearing the concerns. I don't know if Mr. Patel has something he might want to say. Dinesh, are you on?
Unfortunately, Dinesh wasn't able to make it. He's overseas, so.
Okay,
But no, we appreciate all the feedback. So thank you, everyone. Guess we'll have to go back and try to put our heads together, see if there is a path to accommodate all the feedback here. But we definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
very well. That's Dinesh's son. He's home. Dinesh is on vacation. All right, well, thanks for your time. I unfortunately, I'm sorry we had to come in at the end of all of this.
It's okay. Sorry you had to wait.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I was able to finish my golf team. All right, we may be back. We may not be back. We may be back with something different in terms of the concept, but again, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay,
You want to keep?
I don't know.
the last item we have on our agenda is the CEO report.
I'm so excited here. I can bring McDonald. I like McDonald.
Danielle, is there anything on the CEO report you want to bring to our attention at all?
Yeah, it's the same old. I mean, there's a few more things, but it's nothing different.
Okay. All right, okay.
Nothing alarming. We have a tree clearing that's a violation, it's going for the wetlands.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, my other ones.
Oh.
I did see one.
Black?
I'm pretty good at leading.
Oh, right there, Jay, right in the case, right there. Eyes like a hawk.
I would have.
Yeah, black case blended right in.
Walking out thinking, you know, I can't drive home with these. I can't see my hand in front.
I left my phone at home.
All right, so we have no correspondence, nothing for business meeting, no need for an executive session, so anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second?
Call for vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 9 o'clock.
Anything else? Anything else?